How are
Thanks.
you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. You played sports in high school, didn't you?
I did play sports. Yep.
Yeah, which ones? I'm always curious.
Volleyball. Only volleyball.
Only volleyball.
Only volleyball.
Did you have like a really pivotal coach that like kept you in there? Like,
No.
no, okay. So this is a bad story about coaching then. I was hoping this was be like, yeah, I got a
I went the
fantastic coach
opposite way
that
there, but no, I did not.
I said like I had a fantastic coach in basketball, like starting out from when I was really little. And I think that's the only reason I kept doing it. Like, I think when you get a bad coach or you don't have somebody to help cheer you on, push you, like, I think you just kind of fall off the cliff of sports.
I kind of feel that way with school too, though. Like I had some
Oh,
great
yeah.
college professors. So I would say like on the opposite end, like some of my college professors really pushed me and they were super influential. So
Yeah. What do you think like their biggest qualities were?
just compassion, like, when you get to college, like a lot of people describe it as like you're a number, but like in all of my classes, like they knew you by name, like they would email you and like actually use your name. Like it was just so much more personal. So
Yeah.
those professors really stood out
And
to
you
me.
went to a university, so it's not even like you went to
Yeah,
a little college.
exactly. Yep.
Love it. Well, we have one of my favorite coaches. She did not coach me in basketball. She probably could take me in basketball. I'm not sure. We would have to do a one-on-one to find that out. But we have Miss Heather Woody here with us too. So welcome, Heather.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. I have loved Jess forever since I met her. Like hot second, I knew she was my people, and getting to meet Kaylen as well, just the same kind of vibe. So I love that. And I love the great start. Great start talking about your coaches, what you like, what you don't like, all valuable insight in our world of coaching. So awesome.
Love
Thanks
it.
for having me.
Yeah.
Because that's literally what you do for a living is you coach people.
Yep. That's what I do. I was really, really fortunate to have a lot of extraordinary coaches kind of growing up through high school. I mean, even from the time I was really little playing sports. And I think just like Kaylen said, sometimes that can be in the form of a professor, or it could have been your band instructor, someone who's providing that guidance, encouragement, those little nuances of feedback or insight to you to kind of elevate your game, if you will. But I was a sport freak from the time I was little, and I loved the concepts that were in that, from teaming to leadership to performance to attitude and energy and perfecting yourself and so on. And took that all the way through high school sports, took that in four sports that way, and then took it to college and ran track and field at a couple of colleges here in Iowa where I reside, and had some success. But I go back to what you started with, which is like, how do those people impact you? And that's like my jam. Like I can't get enough of it, and sounds really probably cheesy when I say that, but I genuinely love that, those elements. And so bringing that into people in their adult life is like super cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we all need that, like in our corner. We need somebody to cheer for us and push us and make us our best too.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about like so you are a professional coach. Like that's really what you are.
Yeah.
Not so much sports. I don't know, unless you want
Right.
to, you said you were preparing for a physical
someday.
thing is what
Yes.
you were saying. I don't know if this is a race, if it's a weightlifting competition. I'm not sure what you got going on there. But
Yes.
tell us a little bit kind of how you got to be a coach.
Yeah, I will. Okay. So great question. Great question. And I love telling the story. So I like I said, I kind of always known I loved those concepts. I just didn't know sort of where that fit. And so I went to University of Northern Iowa, got my
Go
bachelor's.
Panthers.
Go
Go
Panthers.
That's so awesome. Got my undergrad in communications, and I loved it. And I went into college sports in the marketing slash scholarship fundraising side. It was great work. I mean, super worthy work, important work, but it was just not like where my heart was. I mean, there were so many things about it. I was like, ugh. And it wasn't that it wasn't valuable. It just was not where I wanted to spend the fruits of my labor. And I'm a high impact person. I love to have impact. I love to be impacted. So I started doing my homework. Where can I put my, excuse me, where can I put my time and my talents and my strengths and all of those things into play to further help support and evolve other people
Love it.
and in the business world, right? So I went back to school, and I went back to school. So in our field, the Coach Federation, the International Coach Federation, is really the biggest governing body for professional coaches. So I did my homework there, found a coaching university that I really felt great about. Spent 2.5 years, went back to school, getting my coaching, all of the elements of coaching. Took a ton of classes, did a lot of practice, did a ton of case study, all of those things, and eventually graduated from that university. And then went ahead and opened my practice, and then over time spent time working on the highest level of mastery in our field, and achieved that about, I would say, 8 to 10 years into our practice. It requires thousands and thousands of hours of work and some study and some research and so on. And now I'm a master certified coach in our field, and that encompasses lots of different things, from personal to leadership to performance in any aspect of a professional's life. And so that's my jam. That's what I do.
Love it. You know, you say you're a high impactful person, both on the giving and the receiving end too. Like, what do you think is like, what's the number one thing that impacts people the most if you had to pick something? Like, where do you feel like they just need impacted? Like, that sounds weird. That sounds like the most random thing to say,
No,
but
it's so
I'm sure you see current trends and topics too.
Yeah, honestly, Jess, it's so cool that you asked that question, because I say this literally probably on a weekly basis, not kidding. I tell people this all the time. When we're really young, we get a ton of feedback. We have mirrors all around us, from maybe a parent to a coach or a teacher or whomever, that's sort of shape, like moving us and guiding us. And we're taking all of that in, and that's helping us evolve, and from a young age to maybe our 20s, early 20s. And then we get out into our real life, the adult life, and kind of that stops, and it picks up again, maybe in a performance appraisal and so on. But your mirrors are very, like, they're just not really there. And if you're doing something well, people might say, oh yeah, you're kind of good at that. And then what we do with it is go, oh yeah, whatever, who cares, right?
Yep.
But if we don't do something well, like, people will not tell us that very often. And so kind of taking that question to get to that heart of that is, there's so many people walking around that are in these huge jobs. They're being requested to do things that are like enormous. They're driven. They have huge desire to do great things, but to really understand how they operate, where are they crushing it? Where are their strengths? What are they doing incredibly well? And where do we need to put our foot on the gas in that? And what are the things that they're doing that are absolutely kicking them in the shin? And no one tells them, because we're like, oh, we don't want to hurt their feelings. I'm like, no, not telling them is hurting their feelings.
Yep.
That we want people to succeed. So I say a lot of times the impact is helping people see themselves, giving them insight about performance, about their behaviors, about their style, their tone, their communication, about their discipline or lack thereof, just anything that's going to give them, I always say, like, give them that edge. And there are a few things that do, but that's, to me, Jess, that's exactly where it's at. It's that feedback. It's that insight. I would say I would add a little layer, and this is the part that like keeps me super in it, is encouraging adult people to keep after it. Like, keep going, keep doing the things that, if it's in your business life, your personal life, that makes your heart sing and that helps, you're like just crushing it. Keep doing that thing. We don't get a lot of that encouragement. And when I say encouragement, I'm not talking about like sunshine and rainbow stuff. I'm talking like gut level, hardcore encouragement. And again, just helping people get to where they really can be in their life. So I'm sort of relentless that way. I always tell my clients, I'm like, that can be a lot. So if you need to tell me to like back off, do it. But I want to see you max it out. So yeah.
And I feel, you said like pushing them where they're good at, but also letting them realize like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. Like, yes. I even think sometimes, we talk about this quite a bit, where we can be really, really good at something, but we don't enjoy it. So why are you sitting there continuing to do it when you don't enjoy it? Maybe you can hire it out. Maybe it's just something that doesn't need to be done. But you just because you're good at it doesn't mean that you need to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I feel like no one ever wants to be the bad guy to tell someone like, oh, you're doing this wrong, or, oh, maybe you shouldn't be doing this. But a lot of the time it's needed. Otherwise, nothing's going to change.
Yeah. And, and I think to both of those points, we only know what we know. And when you're with yourself all of your life, we become accustomed to things that some are great things. And I usually, some of the feedback that I give people that is like, they're doing something that's kind of cool and extraordinary. They have just normalized it. And I'm like, like put your foot as hard as you can on this thing. And let's use that. Or just like what you said, Jess, there are things that we do. Yeah, we've become good at it. It's made our way thus far, but the desire to do it isn't there anymore. Or now it's just kind of an annoying thing. And we are so multidimensional. There are so many more things or ways you can bring that gift or that strength or that talent into play that we can't. That's where the coach comes into play, is we can't always think of those things ourselves. And to Kaylen, to your point around, when I give feedback that might be hard for someone to hear, this is exactly how I serve it up. I will tell people, listen, I owe this to you because this is the thing that could potentially set you onto the other side of like something extraordinary. And that's not me being arrogant, like I've got this, knowledge that you don't have. It's enunciating something that's getting in your road and you're working way too hard, to not know this. So when the other piece of that is I tell people all the time, like if you have peers or people around you, they're giving you a little dose of something that they can see that could help you over a hurdle or help you stop doing something. Listen. And the only words you ever need to say to those people is, hey, thanks for having my back. Like, I didn't know. It's not an insult to your system. It's not a negative. Those people, think about how hard it is for a coach or someone else to tell you something like that. It's so hard, but they're doing it because they care. Usually they care. Now, you might run into the occasional person who doesn't care as much, but that's rare. But yeah, I think we all need it. I mean, that's why I love what I do. I have coaches, so many coaches around me that continue to polish and perfect and help me weave my way, which I love. So yeah.
One of the greatest things I learned that you just kind of said is, I probably learned this on TikTok or a meme or something. That's where I get a lot of my information from. But somebody once said that if somebody says something to you, all you say is thank you for the feedback. And then you get to determine how you utilize that feedback. If it's feedback that you don't want, then guess what? You just let it go. If it's feedback that you needed to hear, perfect. Then you internalize it and figure out how to what it, but you always say, thank you for the feedback, because then they'll continue to come with that feedback, whether it's necessary or not too.
100%. I think it's the most professional way. But it really, honestly, it allows, when you just say, hey, thank you for the feedback, it allows your system to just bring it in and just wonder about it, to digest it a little bit. And like you said, just that's exactly it. You get to decide how you discern whether you use a little bit of that or you don't. And I kind of tend to be a believer of that person sees something, whether I like it or whether I don't, whether I know it or whether I don't, there's something to pay attention to in that. And I may not respond to it in the way they want me to, but I need to just be aware of it. And that could, again, so many times, that's the thing that takes you from here to here in your performance or relationships or any of those things. And that's been hugely valuable. I think of it through the lens too of, think about the most successful in terms of outcomes or, whatever measure, whether it be musician, artist, somebody in athletics, all of those people will say, I couldn't have done it without the mirrors. Like I needed all those people to see different elements of my play to understand where to just make even just subtle adjustments. They don't have to be big adjustments, subtle adjustments. And then to help me hear it when I got it right, or help me see it when it was correct. I think those people are hugely valuable. So yeah.
Absolutely. So, you're a coach, you do this for a living. So again, tell me why somebody would want to hire a coach. Like, what are some of the reasons why people come and say, I'm to the point where I need a personal coach? What are some of those reasons that they look at?
Yeah, it's such a great question. So many reasons. I mean, I work with people who come, they want to hire a coach because they've gotten, we'll just start kind of at bottom one, at level one is, maybe they've gotten some feedback in their business life, their professional life, they're trying to navigate. It could be good feedback. They're just taking their game from here to here. It could be some harder feedback that they're at a crossroads with their performance and they need a way to navigate their way through that. or onto something unique and something different. That's a great reason to hire a coach. 2, they know they've self-identified they're not where they want to be. They've done really, they're trying their hardest. Their intent is really good, but they're just not quite making it to that next step. Sometimes it's there's a next step, they just don't know how to define it. So sometimes that's why they hire a coach, is help me kind of tease out and define, where it is I want to go. How do I get there? So sometimes people are really strategic and they can sort of see a path, but they just don't know how to put the pieces into play because they don't really have that execution piece, right? And how to delineate what those steps are and then how to stay disciplined to that. So that's another reason why people will hire a coach, is they want an accountability partner. They want somebody who can come in, walk alongside them, not only help them navigate and define, but then also to say, hey, we're checking in. This is what, tell me how you're doing. What results are you getting? Are you doing what you said you would do? If you are, sweet, what does that next look like? If you aren't, what's that about? One of the key pieces to that, and just as we're answering this question, is that a really great coach isn't going to judge you as a result of that. A great coach is going to help you kind of get inside that and understand why or why not that is happening. A great coach is not someone who comes in and should rip you to shreds to make you feel less than or to bring you down. That is not. I had a coach like that in sports, and all they did was break me to a point where I almost didn't come back, out for that sport or come back into those things that led me down to a pathway that's changed my entire life for the better. But it's not that. People will oftentimes, I've got a client right now, a CEO of a large company, that hired me because he just said, I just need a safe place to talk in a confidential way about business things and help me think things through methodically. So just ask me just so many questions if you can. So that's all I do. I literally never give any sort of guidance, or it's just a boatload of questions and just an opportunity for him to kind of just dump in a confidential way. And that evolves, someone might come in with a really, really important purpose, but we hang up. I always say, I don't overstay my welcome. If you want me to be a part of your deal in your life, in your professional life, personal life, great, I will, unless it becomes where I don't know that it is serving you very well. But we will walk alongside you as long as you need, because, everyone's life is in a different spot. We evolve over time. And so the people that hire me usually have a desire in not only the professional realm, but they're looking kind of at their life as a whole person. How is what I'm doing in my work life affecting my personal life? And how's my personal life affecting my work life? And how do we do that? I was just in a session right before we showed up here today with an individual who's really literally been through it all this year, actually starting last fall, in her career and her personal life. And she has just stayed devoted. She kept her nose right in it when she could have just easily just not wanted to do any of it. And as a result, even today, I'm like kind of flying high coming into this session, because she's doing it. Like, she's doing all the things she says she wanted to do and being it more importantly. And it's very cool to see that happen. So, there's a million reasons why. Everyone's unique. Every reason is unique. There's not one that's incorrect. But as we talk about this, I would say the biggest ingredient, the most imperative ingredient to a coach of any sort working with any professional, is that professional's willingness to be coachable.
Oh yeah.
To really, really want to be in that process, not because someone told you to do it, because you want to see yourself in your best possible ways. And so there are times where people will hire me and I'll say, I don't know that you're ready for that. Here are some things I'm noticing, so that'll give you a little navigation there.
And I think that, you just kind of hit it on the nail. Like, it's the truth. Like, again, how honest are you with yourself? How honest are you with your coach? Because I know some agents who, their coach may say, hey, you got to make 10 cold calls a day. And they're like, oh yeah, I did that. I'm like, bull crap. You sat in my office the whole time. You didn't make a single call. But yet you're telling people that you are. And so in your mind, you're thinking that you're succeeding, which really you're not. And that's not good that's no good for anyone. I was going to say nobody. That's no good for nobody. And that's a double negative. No. It's that, I think it's that honesty with yourself and what you need, and then hearing that feedback and going from there. If you didn't make your calls or you didn't do your things, like tell your coach, hey, I didn't do it. And then your coach can say, why not? Like,
Yeah.
what got in the way? Like, what can we do to avoid that and kind of work through that piece?
Yeah, I think people need that. I need that. I tell
Me
people
too.
all the time, all the things that I'm doing with any client, these are the same things I'm holding myself accountable for. So, and that's such human nature, right? We want to be successful. I think most people would say, I want to live my life to its fullest. I want to be a total rock star in the thing I'm doing professionally. I want to fill in all those things. And that's great. But doing the things to get that done, and even more importantly, one of the questions I always ask is, so when you think about a person in that way, that successful person or has great relationship or is crushing it in their business or what, how are they being? Like, what are those behaviors? How are they showing up? What does that look like? What is the mental framework for that? So we do a ton of mental framework stuff. What are your belief systems that buy into that? What are your belief systems that are just killing you? They just dragging you down, and you're not ever showing up for that. You got the picture, but your headspace is so not about that. So how do we get that dealt with? Then we line up the key actions. It's not a ton of actions. It's 2 or 3, like consistent, work it over and over actions, and just watch yourself expand. It's bananas. It's so cool.
Yeah. So many
So
people think that they need to do all the things. And it's like, no, if you do a few things right, you're going to win too. You don't need to do everything right.
You are exactly right, Jess. And that's what I think, that's the part that I think people do find that encouraging. We are isolating very key things. We don't need to be fragmented to be winning. We don't need to do we live in a society that says do everything. And I'm like, I don't really think so. I really just don't think that. I think it's do the things that matter the most.
Yep.
Bringing the most value. Yeah.
Love it. So what's something that people that are looking to hire a coach, like what are some things that they can look for, that they ask about? Like what makes that connection? Because that connection is so huge too.
Yeah. Yeah. And thank you for asking that. I do think it's really important. So, I always look for people. I would always look for people that are actually certified professional coaches. It's very easy to say I'm a coach, I'm going into the coaching field, I've got enough, backstory in my professional life. Now I'm going to slap the coach label on my door. And I think there are people that are probably really good that way, but coaching is different than just sharing wisdom, right? Mm-hmm. Wisdom is really handy and it has a place in coaching, but that's different than coaching. Coaching is, so you're looking for someone who has done the work themselves, who has I would not say they have to have like a coaching model. I don't have a coaching model. Every single person I meet is very unique, and I really construct and orchestrate to them. There might be things that I have them do that others have done, such as a strengths finder or a disc profile or a 360 assessment or something like that. Those might be the concrete pieces that I would rotate through people, but they're unique to every person. So they don't have to have a model. They can. And if you're somebody who really loves, I want to plug and play, I want the structure just like this, then you go look for that. And there are those coaches, and they are highly valuable people as well. I would look for, I'm very much about vibe. We don't have to be same. Like I'm not same as many of my clients, but I think it's someone that is there for you. They are not there for them. The coach is never, we are never there for self, right? It's all about client. I would ask them, hey, tell me about some of your clients. So coaching is confidential, but we can give you a ballpark. Or I have several clients who have been just amazing and lovely. And I've said, yeah, tell them I use you as a coach. That's great. Anytime they want to give us a call, do it. So I think some of those things, but credentialing is pretty huge for me. I wouldn't go to a dentist, who just decides some dude wants to work on your teeth someday. And then there you are. And you just go on over to their house. No. So same. Yeah.
If they want to come to my house to do my teeth, that's fine. I don't know. I tend to put it off because I just don't find the time to go there. I'm like, I don't know. I can push this a couple more months here. Love it. So, if you were interviewing a coach, what are some questions? Do you have any specific questions that you ask them? Maybe, okay, are you credentialed? Who are your credentials with? Like when we interview sellers and interview lenders, when we do business with them, we have like specific questions that we typically ask. Like, is there anything that you like think about that you're like, gosh, you should really ask your coach this one question because this is a huge question to figure it out?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if I can put my finger on it in one. I would say things that would be important for you to know as a client or a potential client are, how do we work together? You know, is it via Zoom? Is it phone? Is it in person? What are your preferences? I think that's a big deal because you may be an in-person person. And if that coach is across the country, that might not work for you. I think, you know, obviously since 2020, people are much more accustomed to doing it this way. I've got clients in every way, shape, and form that kind of work on their preferences, but I think that's a big deal. I think your connection is a big deal. I think you asked, like you said, about certifications. I think you ask, you know, what, if you were to describe the nature of the work that you do, what's your mindset as a coach? Tell me about some questions you might ask me that I will be answering for you on behalf of our coaching process. You know, what are some of your success stories? What are some stories that you've had with clients that maybe didn't go as you'd had hoped for that client? But again, the success stories are equal to that. Like, give me some success stories about people who are just crushing it, what they're doing. I think those are sort of I would call them sort of your intake, right? Because in the reverse, I'm asking, you know, tell me why you're coming to coaching. Tell me, is this self-driven or is it corporate driven? Tell me what your strengths and your weaknesses are. Tell me if you had 2 or 3, you know, things that you wanted to see out of yourself through this process, and as a result, outcomes you'd love to experience. Tell me about that. So we're just kind of going back and forth in that process. But yeah, that's what I would always say. Absolutely.
When you talk about, you know, like communication vibes, like again, all of that means something. Do you have like maybe you as a coach, or what's the typical like meeting rhythm that you have too? Are you meeting weekly? Are you meeting monthly? Does it just depend? What do those meetings typically look like, all of that stuff?
Yeah, great. So it's really dependent on the client. However, so my recommendation always is we have 2 to 3 very in short succession. So we may meet week 1, go to week 2, skip a week, go to week 3, just to build some steam and momentum, and then pop out to once a month or maybe once every 3 weeks or so. And that is because I like to leave space for people to go put into practice what it was that we decided were their accountability actions, or maybe it's a new way of doing something or thinking. So they need a little practice period. And in that, because of that, I ask people all the time to record what your findings are. I get a journal, get something to write in, you know, say, hey, I tried this new skill or capability, or I was really disciplined 5 days out of the 7 and I did X. Here's what I found, or this is what was challenging. This is what worked. But we really do a great job of having you document what you're experiencing through that process, because we don't want that to get away from us.
Absolutely.
You can go through motions, but that's fruitless, right? I don't want you just doing execution. I want you learning. So coaching is very, very deeply related to anything educationally, like very much about learning and digesting and then bringing those lessons into your system. So that's a big piece of it. When you coach with me, one of my practices is always, when you come into your coaching session the next time, I say, start with your updates. Tell me where you're at. Tell me what you've been working on. Tell me what you're learning, what's working, what's not. And we start there. And then I'll say, okay, what's the next, where do you want to go next? Is anything top of mind? So I always start with their agenda first. That's the most important. I always say I have like an artillery of questions. I want to like get right in there, but I want to make sure, because it's your process. This is your coaching, not mine, that you're owning it, which means you're coming with, you know, you've given it some thought and what you want to get out of the next session. And it may be, we may line up, you know, an agenda for 5, 6 sessions. We may derail that too. Coaching is very fluid based on what we're learning. So it's session to session sometimes, with the notion that eventually we're going to get to the place you said you wanted to get to, and or bigger. Like sometimes we blow that right out of the water. Like, that's small. Let's go bigger. Let's do this better, you know, which that's always really, really fun. The coolest part in our sessions though, and this is the part that I'm a super addict about, is watching people discover that they can be consistent. They can be disciplined. They can like go do the thing. It like literally brings tears to my eyes. I watch it all the time. It's my favorite part. When someone goes, dang, like I'm doing it. I'm being that thing. I'm being the person that like, imagine I've held up on this pedestal this whole time. Like I'm them. But it's their version. Like, it's so cool.
Mhm.
So we do all of that work in your sessions to very concrete, measurable things. Let's say in your work, in your profession, there are very measurable, activities, very measurable outcomes. And so we study those like crazy. We try to understand where are you crushing it in that? What are you not doing? So we're going to do that session to session and really study that. People ask me all the time, Heather, like, how many sessions? I'm like, I don't really know. I can't tell you that right now. I can't read the tea leaves. No fewer than 3 sessions in my practice. We're building momentum. We're still learning about what's going on in those 3 sessions. It's not slow, it's fast, but it's still like, you're going to need a few more than that. I've got people where I've worked 3 sessions only. I've got people I've worked with for 18 years that just, I'm so immersed in their planning and processing that we do that. But like I said, my rule is I never overstay my welcome. If I sense something like that, I just don't like doing that. So,
and I think that probably depends on their outcome too. If they
Totally.
need an accountability piece, doing 3 sections and then leaving them high and dry probably
Right.
isn't working for them. But if they have a project or something that they just need gasoline on the fire, like, okay,
Yeah.
3 sessions may get them through that. But again, it probably
Right.
depends on what that outcome needs to be too.
Yeah. A great model, something that is just occurring, and it's occurred a few times, but it looks a little different this time. There's a large organization in the state of Iowa that they hired me to take them through their whole strategic planning process. We went through it. It was about a 6-month process because it involved a large board and different things like that as well. But as a result of that, the strategic plan is very robust, and it's in addition to daily work, right? So now I'm working with all of the executives in that team and then some of their team to manage all of the parts that they're owning. Well, then that, they're going through some behavioral stuff. They're going through some attitude stuff. They're going through some tactical, measurable stuff. So that's just that's a different kind of model in that. And it's really to make sure that they're drilling the right thing so they can get those outcomes on those timelines. So it's very concrete to very fluid in coaching. And that's, I think that's the other part, maybe going back to Jess's question about, what do you need to know before you hire a coach, is to say, tell me about is your process rigorous? Like I have to stay in this structure, or does it allow me some room to develop and then evolve as a result of developing? And again, everybody knows themselves the best. There's not one right, wrong, good or bad. It's just what works with your style the best. The other part that I would say is you may have a coach say to you, I don't think we're a great fit. Let me tell you why, but I know who could be.
Yeah.
And I've done that a couple of times where I'm not a great fit for them. And it had nothing to do with them. It was my take on work we were going to do. And I'm not as great there, but I know who is. I have a lot of great people around me. So we connect you with those people as well.
Yeah, I think you hit on a really good point, is maybe some of those measurables, because so many people just go through their day to day, but don't measure the daily tasks or don't measure the things that they're doing to get them to that next level. So they don't know that, number one, that they've even won, and number two, what helped them win to get there too. And so Kaylen will know I'm a data nerd. You give me all the numbers and the data. And when you said strategic plan, I'm like, I'm in. I don't know why that is like my jam. And most people like dread that moment that anybody drops the SP word on them. And so like, I don't know. I think like a coach is there to help you figure out what that needs to be too. Like, what are you doing on a daily that maybe you just don't, maybe we look at the data and it's not working. Like what you're doing right now is not working. So why are you spending so much time and effort into there? Hey, we got a little bit of progress. How can we continue this progress too? So
yeah, when you saying that, this is really great because it is sometimes taking away the actions, right? It's not that we're not going to keep piling on the actions. We're going to strip back some actions. I just had a team that I coach in another style of business that, here we're watching them add yet again another step, another activity, another measure, and so on. And I was like, whoa. And I it's great for me because I don't have to be doing and living in your business I count on you to know some of that. Now, over time, we'll start to learn some of those things. I'm going to ask you an enormous amount of questions about every square inch of what you do, but we become like really great partners in this. So this firm was a healthcare firm. Well, I'm not a nurse. I don't know what I'm doing there. But as we're talking, I'm watching the deck of things they're asking of certain healthcare people to do just build and just like, and one of the questions I asked was, so when do you take care of patients at the bedside?
Mhm.
And they're like, oh, like no one's doing that. So sometimes it's just the questions that we ask,
Yep.
and we don't have to know. It's just, this feels like it's missing. So they sat in that for about a 2-hour conversation. And as a result of that, I said, all right, so what we've learned is not enough time there. And some of the data that you're pulling is because you're not spending enough time there. What happens if we just go like this? And what happens if we so then the other question I asked was, so of the stack, how much of this data are you actually using? And the stack went like this.
Yep.
And it was like someone dropped the atomic bomb. And I just said, I'm not a real big fan of, doing things that aren't fruitful. Like, let's just get those things right out of there. And then let's see what happens. Right. So, I mean, that's valuable too, for someone from the outsider. We don't have all of the nuances of that serves you so well, because we can ask you questions about things without any like being tainted or devoted to a certain thing or a certain, something that's in your world. We can just ask it fresh and you can hear it fresh and you're like, right, why is that? And that's huge, in that process. So yeah.
Love it. And I think agents can relate to that because they go into a listing appointment or they go in and represent a seller, and they have to be the people that say, hey, you got to remove that ugly piece of furniture. You got to get it out of here. And it's like, yeah, you don't want it. Like, do you really want to say it? No, but you have to do it because that's what you pay me for. You pay me to do that and tell you what's going to help sell this house.
No one wants to be the bad guy.
No one wants to be the bad guy, although I kind of enjoy it. I don't know. I told Kaylen knows this about me. Like, I kind of love that. I don't know. So,
yeah. Well, because it helps, right?
Oh yeah.
It serves it. That information is going to serve. You're not doing it to be cruel. You're doing it because you're trying to serve someone. And I think that's the other piece, is that what is the coach's motivation? I did work with a coach for a while in my early years. That my first coach was extraordinary. My second coach literally filleted my guts. That's a really gross statement, but it was kind of what I felt. And I was just like, why am I doing this? And it wasn't always the what, it was how they said it. It was so deeply disrespectful. So I think you just have to know, what you need and what you can put up with. I also don't want a squishy cupcake either. I don't want someone just painting on, all sorts of niceties just because. I want somebody who's like with me, like has my best interest at heart and wants to see me like get her done. So that's what you look for. Yeah.
Love it. Kaylen and I are strength finders. We've taken the strength finders, and the very last one of mine is empathy. I don't know what, but you know what? Ever since I learned that about myself, you said you take some of these things and people are like, oh, that fits me perfectly. Once you take some of those tests and, you go over them with a coach or somebody, you're like, oh, that's really right. Like I don't have a lot of empathy for people, but I have enough tact up here that I know how to go about. I know how to counteract what some of my weaknesses are. Find the people like Kaylen who are way nicer than me. Like then she can be my counterpart in that space too.
Yeah. Building teams, like building great teams around you to do exactly that. What are the complements to your strengths and your weaknesses? And you're right. It is finding those things. Something else you said, I think is really important, is most people do not know, they don't have any clue what their strengths are. They just know they do a few things well, and they've always done it pretty well. And so what that means is people are not enunciating that in their work. They're not really leaning into that work, into that way of doing something or way of thinking or what have you, which is like a gigantic miss. It's this huge thing. One of the tests we run, I'll say to somebody, without knowing your strengths finder, tell me what you're good at. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I think and it takes them forever to get there. Well, I think I'm pretty good at math. I'm okay at analytics. But I think, and I'm okay are very uncommitted words, which means that it's so passive in your performance. And I want someone who says, well, let me tell you, here's where I'm really great,
Yep.
and in not any arrogant way. It's to like grow that confidence in that and bring that to serve a family wanting to buy a new home. Like you bring your A game to that family is gonna be thrilled. How do we do that every time? How do we just make that happen for you every single time? Right. And so, yeah, but you got to know it, right?
Yeah.
You got to know it.
Yep.
And we don't vilify the weaknesses either. We just, every human has them. I say to people all the time who do not want to talk about their weaknesses. I'm like, well, if I don't know about you, but like all the other humans walking around this earth have got them going on.
Yep.
And I would actually kind of want to know it so that I can just go, all right, I've got Kaylen over here. She's awesome at that. I'm just awful at that. We're great teammates as a result of that. So,
And I think having somebody there, like a coach should tell you, like, again, we have agents that think they're fantastic at paperwork, and you would ask my team and they are like, oh my gosh, they're the worst. And they're the worst at communication. And like, they don't know that in their head unless somebody tells them that
Yep.
too. And so to have a coach be like, okay, tell me how this works and what you're doing, then you're like, you're probably like a B on the scale of A pluses.
Right.
Like I deal with a lot more people that are different in that space too. And it's not that it's again, right or wrong. It's just, hey, that's not your strength in this and what you're doing here too.
it's true. I mean, it is so true that I think, when you look at a coach, you want there are different theories about how coaches sort of show up for people. And I always say one is they're going to ask you all kinds of questions. It's not to judge. It's to help you think through all of the answers to that. And really great coaches will say, you already know, like, it somewhere in you. It's just bringing it forward, bringing out, which a part of the coolest part of coaching is we're stopping you in time to acknowledge these things, to develop. But to your point, I mean, it's that feedback process, whether it's hard stuff or whether it's good stuff, we just do not get enough of that. And we do not get enough of that in a robust way, but also in a way of, how do I hear this? So it's some behavior I can shift or a mindset I need to be aware of. And my coach isn't telling me to, break me down. My coach is telling me to, like, again, I use the hurdles all the time. Like, get me up over that hurdle so I don't have to keep running through it and like jarring myself every time that I do that. Right.
Yeah.
So, as we were talking, you mentioned I'm doing something kind of physical here and it's happening in August. But one of the things I've taken just exactly what we do with our clients. I've got a journal over here. And in the training process, every training session that I'm done with, I write down exactly what I did. There's the accountability. I write down what I'm learning about the training and what I'm learning about my physical self in that, because I want to be able to bring that to the next session. And then I created an accountability group of friends and family.
Love it.
They were all like, well, you're doing great. I'm like, no. I want you to know that I've completed. You don't have to give me any feedback. If you want to, you can. I just need to know that I did what I said I was going to do.
Yeah.
And it's scary, right? Because if you don't, I also told them, if you don't hear from me on Sunday, I need one of you to say, Heather Woody, where are you? Did you do the thing you said you were going to do? Hey, you know what? You've got that really hard thing coming in August. You going to be able to make it? Like, I want that to happen.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm like,
stop asking me.
I don't care.
I always said my husband would never make a good coach for me, because again, like sometimes you're so close to people too that they don't, or he'll say something like, "Ask for you, just leave me alone." Like, I'm not going to do that. But when it's somebody from the outside in, like, okay, then it's not taking it as personal too.
Yeah.
Like to have somebody like, even on our team, like I could tell Kaylen something, she could be like, Jess, whatever. Like, I'm just going to leave that alone. But then to have Heather come in and tell Kaylen's like, oh gosh, I better get that done. It's that self-reflection piece. Like, oh gosh, I better do this because somebody else is telling me to do this. So pick somebody who is going to be honest with you too.
Yeah.
It's like that unbiased perspective. Like a lot of us, friends, family, coworkers, like some of us won't tell us what we need to hear, but
That's right. Sometimes that comes the question that I'll ask, let's say, someone hires me for X goal, they've gotten their professional life or personal life. And if I've watched them kind of float past those activities a few times, and there are legit things that do stop people from maybe taking an action, and we're very human in that too. But if it continues to happen and there's a pattern being formed, which to me is like a couple times, like 2 or 3 times it hasn't happened. And there's always something. Here's the way I'll ask the question. I'll say, so, what you told me was X goal was really imperative to you. Is that still the case? Or I'll say, you shared that you wanted to accomplish X at this time. It doesn't look like there is as much devotion to that. Has that shifted for you? And so I operate in an appreciative inquiry kind of way, that I'm going to ask you a question to help you process that.
Yeah.
And whatever your answer is, it's okay. Because if you say to me, you know what, Heather, I thought that was the goal. I don't really care about that. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then why we keep pushing towards that then?
Yes. What's next? Yeah. So all of those are they're not passive aggressive. It's not, I think you're terrible and what the heck, and why aren't you showing up? It's, you said this was important and your actions aren't lining up to serve that. Has something shifted? And let's figure that out if so. And sometimes people say, no, it's really important. And so we get into what the thing is that's stopping them. So yeah.
Love it. Heather, like, what's the one like piece of advice that you typically give your clients? Like, what's that, like that one thing that you kind of either leave them with or lead them with maybe? Like, what's that one piece of advice that you just give everybody?
Oh gosh. Oh, I would say this comes up a lot. It would be maybe 1 and 1.5. I would say, as an adult individual, coming to understand that you can really literally, change your own life by a few very key ways that you think, really checking your thoughts and deciding that you are going to be committed to yourself and to those that you care about, or the profession that you care about. If you can do that, you will absolutely see change. You will see yourself going in that direction, but it starts with, you have to believe that you can do that. I think in the 0.5 part of that is, people say, well, I'm not confident enough for that. I'm like, well, good. It's the best day to start then, because the only way you can grow confidence is by doing.
Love it.
That's it. So that's kind of where I go, is right out of the gate is checking that point. And we just serve that right up in session 1. So yeah.
This gets me motivated. Heather, we're not even talking about anything I do on a normal basis, but I'm ready to go. Like, let's go.
Good. I love that. Well, I'm so passionate about it. And it's, all the time people say, do you love what you do? Don't you get tired of listening? I'm like, no, I love what I do. And I know that sounds real cheesy and I don't even care. I will do this for the rest of my life. I love what I do. And it's so genuine. And, yeah, it's just been such a life-serving thing for myself and hopefully hundreds of people that I've gotten to work with. So,
and you can tell when people enjoy what they do and they're passionate about it. And you can tell when people don't, or they're just going through the motions. And you can tell that, again, if you're getting us amped from, like 90 miles away and on Zoom, like, I don't know, I'm starting to sweat over here. I'm so excited.
I love that.
Heather, we always like to end with a random question that you have no idea, like kind of what's coming. It's off the wall. And our question for this time is like, what's the most underrated city that you've ever visited? Like, what's one place where you're like, gosh, I think everybody should take a peek at this?
Oh my golly. Okay.
And it can be anywhere in the world. It doesn't have to be in the state of Iowa too.
Yeah, that's a doozy. I like it. So, a most underrated city. Well, Jess and Kaylen, I am sitting here thinking about that. You know what? Here's what I will say. It's underrated. It was probably accurately rated, but it's changed. And some of you are gonna go, oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said this, but Waco is kind of cool. But that has a lot to do with the Gaines family, right?
Yep.
And
they love that game. Yeah.
I didn't know what Waco was before Chip and Joanna. So
it was like just, and I probably shouldn't say that publicly, but it's like it's so interesting and so dynamic in all of the ways. The culture, what they've done, but the culture and the nature of the city is pretty darn cool. It was a place I was actually pleasantly surprised to visit. I would go back. Yeah.
Love it. Okay. Yeah. Everybody go to Waco, Texas, but not Waco, Iowa. I don't think there's a Waco, Iowa.
No.
Go to Waco, Texas.
Yeah. And there's probably more behind that, but yeah, that's the one that kind of came to the forefront of my mind.
Yeah, love it. Well, Heather, you are always a pleasure. Every time we get to see you, talk to you, everything again, you can just exude all of the amazing things and qualities too that people need. So, let me just ask a follow-up question. Number one, are you taking current clients too as coaching?
Yes, I am. I
Okay.
absolutely
And
am.
how would they find you and get a hold of you?
Yeah, so my website is www.heatherwoody.com. Really got creative there, but I wanted people to know exactly where to go. So that is my name. You are more than welcome to link up that way to find me. That's probably the best way. All my contact information's there. You can learn a little bit about me on my website, about our work, about different offerings that I've got, even outside of coaching, whether it be some training or speaking or what have you. All of that is listed there and growing. Actually, we're making some adjustments and some additions. We're in the process right now as well. But my email is coachheather and the number 10 at Gmail. And you're welcome to reach out anytime. I am taking new clients.
Perfect. And I will say we had Heather come speak in an event, and some of my people, like from my team anyway, who like, I thought they're going to hate every minute of this because they hate going to conferences. They hate everything. They're like, Heather was the best part of the whole thing. And so I was like, okay, so if you can motivate them, you can motivate about anybody right there. So
I'm really, really grateful. Thank you, Jess. And for both of you. And I said this when we started today, when I, introed with them early on, but I want you all to know, I mean, you're working with great people here as well. And I was so honored to be asked to do this today. So thank you so, so much for including me. And I'm here if there's anything you need from me in the future, but their energy is like equal. We kind of bounce off of each other, I think. So that's pretty great. Thank you for having me.
It's all caffeine and love and energy and Skittles and rainbows and all the stuff you talked about before too. And Target. Still waiting for that sponsorship. Yeah. Love it. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Thank you.